8 foods that destroy your liver. Hello everyone. Today, we'll be talking about 8 types of foods that are harmful to the liver. First, let's talk about refined carbohydrates, like white rice and white flour used to make white bread. Refining means we remove certain nutrients, and when they remove something, they usually add something else and call it fortified food. To give you a proper perspective on the value you're getting, it's like taking $1 and giving back a penny. These are nutrient-poor foods, and that's why refined foods and refined carbohydrates are things you should cut down on or avoid. This also includes things like fruit juice, because whole fruit is considered a complete food, although I don't think you should eat it without limits. When you turn it into juice, you remove many of the beneficial elements, leaving only the sugar for your body to absorb quickly. Another example is crackers and rice cakes. Even if they use whole grains to make rice cakes, they alter them by puffing them up, which changes the surface area and makes it easier for your body to access the sugars in those carbohydrates faster. The reason this matters for liver health is that many liver diseases stem from metabolic issues like blood sugar problems, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. So, we need to understand what carbohydrates are. Why are we talking about this? This is the glucose molecule, the basic form of carbohydrate, which ultimately ends up in the blood as glucose, allowing every cell in your body and every animal on this planet to use glucose. When it comes to carbohydrates, people often mention rice and wheat. These grains are called complex carbohydrates, and people say they're good for you and that you should eat plenty of them. But really, it just means we connect glucose molecules into hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of branched molecules, which we call starch. But it's not actually that complex, because it only takes a few seconds to start breaking down these bonds, and now we have free glucose molecules that can enter the blood very quickly. Now, when we increase blood sugar levels, insulin rises as well. If we constantly eat these foods, insulin levels remain elevated. High insulin levels promote fat formation, creating fat and converting excess carbohydrates into fat, as this is the only way our body can process and store them. Naturally, when we convert food into fat, some of that happens in the liver, contributing to fatty liver disease. But there's another way refined foods harm both food and the body, by depleting nutrients, meaning we strip away valuable elements, nutrients the body needs. When we process this food and break it down for energy, we need the vitamins and minerals that were originally in it. But when we remove them, the body suffers, particularly the liver. Let's talk a bit more about that. The second item on the list is sugar, a specific type of carbohydrate, and it's worse than just starch, which is made up of glucose. Sometimes people call it white sugar or brown sugar, other times it's called sucrose, high fructose corn syrup, or molasses, but essentially, it's all the same. ***, the difference with starch, and how fructose affects the liver ***. The main difference with starch is that besides glucose molecules, we now have fructose molecules, which have a different chemical structure. Glucose can be used by every cell in the body, but fructose can only be processed by the liver. Since sugar contains both types of molecules, we now have 2 mechanisms of harm. The first is similar, raising blood sugar levels, increasing insulin, promoting insulin resistance, and storing fat, some of which accumulates in the liver. But now we also have a second mechanism through fructose, since only the liver can process it, leading to a tendency to overload the liver very quickly. If we consume only a small spoonful occasionally, it would be fine. However, when we start consuming large amounts of sugar, about 50% of which is fructose, this increases fat formation in the liver, leading to fatty liver much faster. This occurs with sugar, not just with starch. These 2 factors are major drivers behind metabolic syndrome, or syndrome X, which leads to various metabolic diseases. We're also seeing issues like cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure linked to a higher risk of stroke, visceral fat, and the advanced stage of insulin resistance known as type 2 diabetes. The reason we often discuss these in relation to the liver is that a significant proportion, around 55 to 70%, of people with type 2 diabetes also have fatty liver disease. Now, I also want to clarify some things about saturated fats, as they are often mentioned as a positive factor in fatty liver disease. But, when we really look into it, they are not a positive factor, and in fact, are related to this disease. People with diabetes, for example, often don't take the best care of themselves and tend to eat more saturated fats. When insulin levels are high and metabolic problems arise, saturated fats are no longer beneficial. But they are not the primary cause. For example, I've eaten 100 eggs in 7 days, or 100 hamburgers in 10 days. The reality is that we're focusing on the wrong things. I've analyzed my blood before and after, and the results showed nothing worse. I didn't push myself into metabolic problems at all, while in a period of eating a normal diet with a lot of processed foods, my blood markers worsened significantly in just a short span of 7 to 10 days. But that doesn't mean I'm advocating this as an ideal diet. Eating in a monotonous way isn't a good idea. If you consume large amounts of saturated fat for a prolonged period, it creates an imbalance, because you're not getting enough variety in foods. What we need is a balanced diet, and this doesn't mean a diet heavy in grains, 10% of calories from added sugars, and 65% from carbohydrates. To me, that's not balanced. Eating real foods, including beef and butter from grass-fed cattle, which are nutrient-rich, means that the saturated fats in them are healthy. These animals are raised in ways that support their health. You can also use a lot of extra virgin olive oil and a bit of coconut oil, especially for cooking. Then, incorporate other healthy fats like nuts, seeds, and avocado, as these fats are still beneficial. Saturated fats and monounsaturated fats, like extra virgin olive oil, are good for health. They are stable and don't spoil easily due to light and oxygen. Of course, you should also eat plenty of non-starchy vegetables. Eating in this way means you don't need to worry about saturated fat, as you won't be spiking insulin, and the quality of fat you consume overall is very good. Number 3 on the list, popular beverages ***. Most people know that sodas or soft drinks contain a lot of sugar. Just one can has about 40 grams. But many restaurant drinks, or others, can go up to 70 grams per bottle. There are also other beverages that people don't consider harmful, like coffee drinks, such as those that are very popular nowadays, which can contain 50 to 70 grams of sugar. Most people, when they buy coffee, like to indulge a little and choose drinks that resemble desserts, but they don't think of them as being as bad as soda. Then there are energy drinks that contain similar amounts of sugar, like iced tea. People often think they're drinking tea with a bit of sugar, but in reality, it might have as much sugar as other beverages. Even drinks like vitamin water, which may be sugar-free or sweetened with stevia, or, worse, with artificial sweeteners, still have some varieties with sugar. You might consume 20 to 30 grams of sugar in just one bottle of vitamin water, which totally defeats the purpose of drinking it for the vitamins. Then there are milkshakes. People often think, oh, it's just milk. But it's really just milk with added sugar. Did you know? You can get between 50 to 90 grams of sugar in a milkshake. Even healthier drinks you think of as substitutes, like coconut water, can sometimes be unsweetened, but still have 8 to 10 grams of sugar per cup or serving. Some versions actually have added sugar, and depending on the size, you could consume up to 50 grams of sugar in something you thought was healthy. I bring this up because many people consume these without realizing or considering the sugar content. US guidelines suggest you can consume 10% of your calories from added sugars, about 50 grams, which I think is already quite a lot. Yet most of these drinks, especially larger ones, can easily push you over that limit. I believe the daily sugar intake should be between 0 and 20 grams, or roughly 4 teaspoons. This would allow you to add a bit of honey to your coffee, or sweeten a drink or dish, but it doesn't mean you should pour a large amount of sugar into your beverages or food. Most people know that the US practically wrote the book on obesity and diabetes in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. However, the rest of the world is catching up fast. I'd like to share some statistics on diabetes, because once again, type 2 diabetes is a major cause of liver diseases and fatty liver, which can progress to hepatitis, cirrhosis, and even worse. Here are a few examples of countries with the highest diabetes rates. These statistics apply to adults over 18. Brazil has a rate of 8%, India 9.6%, and the US 10.2%. Although the US used to be the worst example for diabetes, now other countries are reaching similar or, as you can see, even worse levels. Indonesia is close to the US, China is similar, and then with Mexico, there's a big jump, 15.9%, and Pakistan has over 30% of adults with diabetes. I mention this to show that this is a global issue today. Some of the world's largest countries represent nearly every continent, so this isn't just a US or Western problem, but a truly global one that's on the rise. Number 4, alcohol. There are two things that only the liver can break down. No other cell in the body can handle a large amount of these, and they are alcohol and fructose, which we discussed earlier. Most people know that alcohol isn't good for your health, and in the past, nearly all liver problems were related to alcohol. Nowadays, however, most liver issues are related to metabolic problems, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. Alcohol isn't exactly good for you, but drinking in moderation isn't necessarily harmful either. However, there are worse things, like cocktails, which are mixed with lots of sugar. Not only that, but it's now easier to drink more of them, because they don't contain much alcohol. They want you to buy drinks like daiquiris, margaritas, and similar ones, which are loaded with sugar, so you tend to drink more. Next, we have alcoholic beverages often served as dessert drinks. Just a small glass is enough, as they are very sweet, containing about 30 to 40% sugar. Once again, you don't drink much, but with alcohol and sugar combined, it puts stress on the liver, both alcohol and fructose. Then there are sweet wines. This type of wine has added sugar, so it could be port wine or any other sweet wine that contains both alcohol and sugar. Next is beer, which of course contains alcohol, but no added sugar, instead containing various carbohydrates. So, it's not as bad as the others, and the carbohydrates are mostly starch. Better options, or the less harmful choices, include dry wines, dry red wine, dry white wine, and any distilled alcohol without added sugar, such as vodka, gin, whiskey, bourbon, and so on. I mention this because I know many people will drink any type. So, if you plan to drink, it's best to know which types are a bit better or less harmful for you. But of course, remember to keep it moderate. Number 5 on the list is vegetable oil. We all know how good vegetables are, right? We should eat as much as we can, so if we can make oil from these vegetables, that must be a good thing. When you go to the store, you'll see labels saying, pure vegetable oil and various types of vegetable oil. I'm really curious, what vegetables are they using to make these oils? I read the labels, hoping to find products made from romaine lettuce, broccoli, or cauliflower. We all know those are healthy vegetables, but can you imagine my surprise when none of those are used? In fact, most of them contain one of three things: either soybean oil, which isn't from a vegetable but from legumes like peanuts, peas, or white beans, or canola oil. That's another word for rapeseed. It's a seed. Another common source is sunflower seeds, cotton seeds, and they make oil from these seeds, but they are not vegetables. Or they use corn, which many people think is a vegetable, but it's actually a grain. When oils are extracted from beans, seeds, or grains, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio they yield is often unhealthy. If this ratio is 1 to 1, our bodies can regulate inflammation properly. But with these oils, we typically get ratios up to 20 to 1 of omega-6 to omega-3. This puts our bodies in an inflammatory state. This alone is a serious problem, but an even bigger issue with these oils is that they require very high temperatures, extreme pressure, and even chemicals to extract oil from these sources. As a result, you end up with an oil that tastes bad, smells foul, and contains damaged particles from all the harsh processing steps. So, in the end, you have something close to plastic. Number 6 is fried food, and we all know how bad fried foods are, but the main reason they tell you it's bad is because of the calories. That's not the real reason. The reason is that you start with those vegetable oils we just talked about. But besides that, they also reuse these oils. They won't just pour a big batch of oil, fry some potatoes or shrimp, then discard it and start again. No, they use that oil all day. With each use, that oil becomes more oxidized due to prolonged high heat. This leads to more damaged molecules and more rancid fats. You can also imagine that some of the foods being fried will leave residue in the oil. There will be small traces of protein, for instance, and these food particles will burn because they remain in the oil all day, making the oil increasingly toxic. All these toxins, of course, are things the liver has to remove and cleanse, as this is one of the liver's main functions. Number 7 is fats and margarine. Again, we're dealing with those vegetable oils that weren't healthy to begin with, but now we're processing them even further. We apply more pressure, heat, and hydrogen. We're attacking them with hydrogen, which changes their molecular structure. In the vegetable oil and frying industries, this happens unintentionally, but here, they do it deliberately. They want to modify these molecules to turn a liquid into something solid. Doing so alters its properties, making it more shelf-stable and easier to bake with. That's why they use margarine in baking, as it makes food crispier and tastier. But the downside, of course, is that they start with relatively healthy items like beans or seeds, yet end up with something entirely unnatural. They're deliberately altering the molecular structure, and ultimately creating what's known as trans fats, a completely unnatural type of molecule. These don't exist in nature, so we don't have the enzymes needed to break them down. When they enter the body, they're challenging for the body to remove, unlike natural fats we get from real food. One way to identify these on labels, even if it says no trans fats, is to look for partially hydrogenated soybean, corn, or canola oil. Partially hydrogenated oils are truly bad. They've made some improvements. They used to fully hydrogenate, meaning they'd completely saturate it, so theoretically, there would be no trans fats anymore. But this isn't an exact science, so it seems they can't guarantee 100% of all molecules will be fully hydrogenated. There will always be some that are still partially hydrogenated, and some products still contain partially hydrogenated ingredients. But with delicious, natural foods like butter, extra virgin olive oil, etc., why choose these modified foods whose molecular structure has been altered? Number 8 is processed foods. When you go to the supermarket or grocery store, you'll often see real, fresh foods around the perimeter. In the middle, you'll find all sorts of processed foods. There may be a few hundred, maybe even a few thousand natural foods, give or take, but there are up to 50,000 types of these processed foods. These are foods that have been packaged and preserved to sit on the shelf indefinitely. The issue is, they're designed to last so long, but to achieve that, they rely on nearly all the negative and unhealthy ingredients we've discussed in this video. So you'll find things like white flour, sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and the so-called vegetable oils. Now you understand why all these ingredients are bad for you, but then they combine all of them into one product, making everything so much worse. You end up with hydrogenated or partially or fully hydrogenated oils, which provide a certain amount of trans fats. Of course, they also have to add preservatives, chemicals that make the food unappealing to mold, bacteria, and yeast. Because they've removed everything flavorful except sugar, they have to add other flavors through chemicals and make it visually appealing with artificial colors. This food is highly processed and seriously lacks nutrients, as it removes everything that could spoil, things that naturally contain nutrients. This adds to the burden on the liver, as the liver's job, its purpose, is to carry out a very active metabolic process. This is a very active member, expending a lot of energy and resources to eliminate toxins, known as the process of biotransformation. The liver has to convert all leftover foreign toxins and metabolic waste so that we can eliminate them. This consumes a lot of resources. In the initial phase of biotransformation, the body uses enzymes, like small keys or catalysts, to neutralize some of these toxins, making them less harmful. These enzymes depend on various factors to function and be activated. You need most of the B vitamins, such as B2, B3, B6, B9, and B12, as they all play a role in activating these enzymes in the liver. You also need antioxidants, because many toxins and waste products exist as free radicals, So we need antioxidants like vitamins A, C, and E in their natural form, which we get from food. Selenium is another antioxidant, and these enzymes are also supported by cruciferous vegetables, cabbage family vegetables, and those tiny phytochemicals, the chemical compounds you find in these vegetables. In the initial phase, we neutralize many toxins, but they still aren't water-soluble, so the body cannot eliminate them yet. They mostly remain fat-soluble. In the second phase of detoxification, the liver performs a step called conjugation, meaning it combines toxins into something water-soluble, making the entire complex water-soluble so we can eliminate it. These include amino acids, especially sulfur-containing amino acids like methionine and cysteine. The body also uses these two sulfur-containing amino acids to produce glutathione, the number one antioxidant within the body's cells. Many natural, whole foods contain not only nutrients, but also other elements like polyphenols, fiber, vitamins, and minerals that help the liver function properly. When you eat the unhealthy foods we discussed, you're not only building up fat in the liver, but also consuming nutrient-poor foods. You're depriving the liver of the necessary nutrients to cleanse itself and eliminate all other waste from the body, which is truly its job. We need to start understanding that none of what we discussed in this video is actually food, yet these have become the primary foods we consume, and that's what's driving these health crises. If you like this video, you'll definitely enjoy upcoming videos too. If you truly want to understand health and how the body works, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and turn on all notifications so you won't miss any life-changing videos.